Hi, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad you are joining us today as we go over our legislative preview. My name is Tamaya Cox-Turay, and I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Oklahoma. And I'm so excited that you're here to join us for a few minutes to really talk about what the work's going to look like this legislative session. My pronouns are she and her, and I've been with the executive director for almost a little over 3 years now, but I'm really proud to lead this amazing team, many who you will meet today. One of the things I do want to just start off with is that I'm really excited to announce we're actually celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. So that means 60 years of protecting civil liberties in our state of Oklahoma. I think it goes to show the resiliency of our organization, of the ACLU, and the amazing work that we continue to do. Please be on the lookout throughout the whole year on ways that you can help join us and celebrate with us the 60 years. I'm also excited to announce that we also are unveiling our strategic plan. This was a year-long process that we delved in to really think about what are the priorities of our affiliate and the work we want to accomplish in the next 4 years. And I will be honest, these are bold initiatives that we are going to be working on. So real quickly, we have 3 campaigns, priority campaigns that we're working on. That's to restore abortion access by 2027. That's to advance criminal legal reform by 2027. And that's to end the death penalty here in Oklahoma by 2027. As I said earlier, these are bold initiatives, but please know the ACLU, our staff, and our supporters, we are up for the challenge, and we really hope you will join us in this campaign to truly fight oppression in our state. But with that said, for the next hour or so, we're going to do a deeper dive into the legislation that's been introduced in our 2024 legislative session. I do want to prepare you. We all should take a collective deep breath because if the media reports you may have seen may give you a doom and gloom outlook on what's happening. And if you love civil liberties the way that we love civil liberties, I know that what we've seen on the news may create high anxiety. But I'm here to tell you and prepare you that even at these dark times or these tough times, the ACLU will continue to support and defend and protect civil liberties no matter what and at all costs. but we do that with the help of our supporters. So there's going to be an opportunity at the end to learn about ways that you can get involved and to help with the work. But we also know that we don't do this alone. None of this work gets done alone. So we have amazing partners that are here on this webinar, but that will be joining us throughout this session to really help us push and advance the good bills that are there and hopefully stop and mitigate the damages of the bad bills. So with all of that said, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing policy director, Cindy Nguyen, who's really going to talk to you. Cindy's job is really to create relationships with legislators and policymakers and to monitor what's happening at the legislature. So as many positive vibes as you can throw her way this session, I know she'd greatly appreciate it. And then lastly, this only works if we are communicative to the community. So there is an option. So if you do have questions, we will have time for questions at the end, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat or use the Q&A function on this webinar, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So with that said, I will pass this over to Cindy.
Thank you, Tamaya. I think every single year, if you have joined us in our legislative preview before, you know that the legislature seems to outdo itself every single year when it comes to attacking civil liberties and the rights of all Oklahomans. One of the unique things about our legislature is that there is no room for public testimony at any point in the legislative process. This means that one of the few ways that lawmakers can actually hear the impact of the bills that they're authoring is when we directly contact them ourselves. So in all of the doom and gloom, like Tamaya said, at the very end, we will include action steps from our very own amazing Jasmine, our organizing manager, in ways to get involved and stay engaged, because we know that democracy is never handed over easily. So with that said, we will move to the next chapter. We will move to the next slide. Thanks, Megan. As you can see, our legislative tracker and our legislative agenda is very full with attacks on civil liberties against all Oklahomans. Currently, we are tracking about 180 bills this year alone. We will be going over all of the priority bills in each issue area, because if we had to go over each and every single bill, we would be here for about 10 hours. The next slide, please. So these are just some of the legislative deadlines for this legislative session. Session starts this Monday, February 5th, and our legislative session lasts for 2 years, with this being the second half of the 59th legislative session. What that means is that all of the bills that did not get voted down last year are now carried over into this year. So on top of all of the bills that we are tracking for this year, we are also keeping an eye on all of the bills that did not get voted down last year. So you can see the start of legislative session on February and all the way until the end of May, or the last day of session. Next slide. So starting off with some of the ugly repro bills, the reproductive freedom bills that we are opposed to. So since the last time I made this slide, there are about 20 bills attacking reproductive freedom overall, with about 14 of those bills directly impacting abortion access. If you did not know, Oklahoma was was the first state in the nation to completely ban access to abortion before even Roe was overturned. But because of the incredible work of our partner organizations, the Center for Reproductive Rights, 3 of those abortion bans from 2022 have been overturned, except for the 1910 pre-Roe ban. What this means is that abortions is still inaccessible within our state. But we knew that these lawmakers were not going to stop even when abortion was completely banned. This legislative session, we are seeing about over 20 bills attacking reproductive freedom. Some of these bills you can see on the slide include making it a felony to possess, deliver, or even suggest or advertise the abortion pills to any pregnant person. We also see bills that would directly criminalize and prosecute the pregnant person for obtaining an abortion. We know that the Attorney General already said that all of the abortion bans that have recently passed do not allow for the prosecution of the pregnant person. However, we have some newly elected officials that are looking to change that. We are also seeing some criminalization when it comes to the spread of STIs, as well as the criminalization of any adults that help minors obtain an abortion in as well as out of state. So we are seeing some really troubling bills as well as a personhood bill. So what a personhood bill would mean that the pregnant person would have less rights than the fetus, and that it could lead to the prosecution of that pregnant person if they decide that abortion is the right choice for them. So again, we are facing over 20 reproductive attacks on reproductive freedom. Next slide. So some good bills on the reproductive front. We are seeing a lot of bills about paid leave, so we're really happy to see that. So we are also seeing some bills sponsored by our partner organizations, bills that would allow the access to menstrual products in public schools. So we are seeing 3 different authors carry that menstrual product bill. We are also seeing bills that would decriminalize the spread of HIV as well as AIDS. More bills that would protect contraceptive access in the midst of all of the abortion bans, as well as paid leave that is extended for higher education full-time employees, as well as public school support staff. So we're glad to see those bills, and we will be fighting in favor of those reproductive freedom bills. Next slide. So some bad bills. We have the highest number of anti-2S LGBTQ plus bills directly filed within the nation. So this year we are tracking over 50 bills that directly impact our 2S LGBTQ plus communities. 2 of these bills directly impact gender affirming care. The first one would impact gender affirming care and ban public funding for their use, such as Medicaid, and suspend hospitals that do perform gender affirming care. The second bill, or the first bill, would also make sure that parental consent is required for all gender affirming care / behavioral therapy / any social transitions. Of course, parental notification and consent is always required. However, this would force all, quote, covered facilities or residential facilities that minors are present at without their parents or guardians, and force a notification if they're receiving any type of behavioral therapy or, quote, social transitions. What this could include is changes in names, pronouns, if that child gets a haircut or changes their clothes. It would essentially be a form of a forced outing bill. So we are seeing 2 direct attacks on gender affirming care within our state. The other bills, the healthcare exemption bills, we are seeing 2 of those. We saw the exact same bill in Arkansas, and what it would do is it would allow any healthcare provider, employer, or healthcare insurance or payer to be able to deny healthcare based on any religious or moral or strong ethic beliefs. Meaning that, for example, if you were a pregnant person and you also had cancer, your doctor could deny you cancer treatment if they believe that it could harm the fetus. So this type of bill would impact not only our 2S LGBTQ plus communities, of course, it could also impact reproductive access as well. We are also looking at the adoption bill. This would disallow DHS from requiring potential adoptive parents for being affirming of any gender identity or sexual orientation. This could also mean that potential adoptive parents that believe in things like conversion therapy would be allowed to adopt an already vulnerable and marginalized group. And then the next 2 are chaplain and public schools as counselors. We saw the exact same bill in Texas. That bill has not yet passed in Texas, but we are seeing national trends across the state that mixes religion and public schools. So this would allow chaplains to act as counselors. If you have ever read a school counselor, you know that they have to go through significant training and get many certificates and abide by confidentiality. However, if you are a chaplain in public schools, you would not have to go through this type of rigorous training. And we know that this could impose even more dangers and threats to us LGBTQ plus students. Next slide. So even more attacks, because this is the most amount of bills that we have seen in the nation. We are also still seeing gender marker bills. So you know that the governor already had an executive order that would prevent any changes to birth certificates that would disallow the marking for the non-binary gender on a birth certificate. The second half of that executive order also disallowed any changes in general to the birth certificate when it comes to gender. So you see those two bills, HB 3219 and SB 1891, would codify the second half of that executive order and not allow any changes to birth certificates when it comes to gender. Whenever we see SB 1731, it would also do something similar. There are quite a few grammatical errors in that bill, and it would not codify the governor's executive order. However, all three of those bills would would be detrimental, especially to trans and non-binary folks that are needing the correct document. We are also continuing to see forced outing bills. So if you have ever paid attention to anything from the State Board of Education, you know that they have already passed rules similar to this. And we keep seeing similar bills that would also codify the State Department of Education or State Board of Education rules on this. These are also known as Parental Bill of Rights. It would ban parts of sex education. It would notify parents if that student changes their names or pronouns, or if there's any significant changes to their mental health. So we call it a forced outing bill because, again, this could increase the danger for that child at home if they are not in an accepting home. The last one is essentially a pride flag / pride activity / month ban for state entities. This would not allow any state entities to fly anything that is pride related or participate or promote in anything related to pride. So that is HB 3217. Next slide. Moving on to class and library censorship. Of course, we are opposed to all of the bills listed here. You can see that there are some senators that have a very particular love for filing certain types of bills. We can see, again, the governor has had an executive order discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially in higher education and state entities. All of the bills listed there under restrictions for higher ed would also codify portions of the executive order. If you did not already know, the executive orders expired 90 days after the current governor that had those executive orders leaves office. So if any of these bills were to pass, it would become law and never expire unless another bill was introduced. Next, we see the school library bills. Oh, sorry, Megan, I was talking about the next bill. Can you go back? Thank you. So with the school library bills, we are seeing the exact same senators introduce bills they introduced last year. So SB 1208 would prohibit school libraries from making any sexualized content available for students under 18. However, it is incredibly broad, and we think of instances in which students may need a book regarding biology or anything of that nature. Would they be able to get access to it? It would also require all school libraries to submit materials every single year to the State Department or the State Board of Education. If they are in violation, then those school districts face a 5% decrease in state funding. SB 1888, we are also seeing it would prohibit certain schools and school libraries from maintaining and promoting books with certain subjects. Again, do we really want politicians choosing what our children can or cannot read? So we are seeing continued attacks, especially when it comes to DE&I and higher education, as well as attacks on classrooms and school libraries and being able to access any of those books. Next slide. Moving with the criminal legal system. So some of these bills on here, or all of the bills on here, we are vehemently opposed against. This is also the next largest list that we are currently tracking right now. So you can see there are about 4 bills attacking the Judicial Nominating Commission. If you are not aware of what they do, the Judicial Nominating Commission proposes judges that the governor then selects to become judges. So all 4 of these bills would take that power or parts of the power away from this commission and hand it directly to the hands of the governor, meaning that anybody who is currently the governor of Oklahoma would get to hand select our judges. We often see these type of bills whenever there is a loss at the state Supreme Court in favor of anything slightly progressive or anything slightly in favor of civil liberties. Oftentimes, lawmakers do not want to see any more losses, so they want to make sure that the power lies in the hands of the governor. We are also seeing the criminalization or increased criminalization overall. So we are seeing the exact same bills again, such as the criminalization of loitering at public infrastructures or critical infrastructures. We are also seeing many rollbacks on State Question 780. State Question 780 was passed and it reduced many felonies down to misdemeanors, including drug and property crimes. SB 1199 would add accessory to murder to the 85% of crimes list, meaning that you would have to serve 85% of that before you are considered for parole or release. HB 3133, I think all of us saw this in the news. It would label any person's quote of Hispanic descent who are members of gangs as terrorists. I think we also saw the representative that introduced this got a lot of flack from a lot of people. He has said that he will change the language on this. However, we know that we are going to keep an eye on this type of bill, regardless of what the language changes into. And then lastly, we are seeing surveillance and privacy bills, especially when it comes to automatic license plate readers. If you are not familiar with the automatic license plate readers, they are a sweeping and massive, powerful, massive surveillance tool that feeds into a centralized data system. What this means is that large police departments and federal agencies all can get access to vehicles, identifying an identification number or identifying numbers, even in vehicles in the smallest of towns. We know that these automatic license plate reader devices often get it wrong, and that it could lead to the traumatic treatment of many individuals whenever police officers are pulling over individuals in which they think that they have the correct license plate numbers. They have also been used to survey mosques. So we know that these automatic license plate readers come with a lot of errors, and that we will be fighting both of these bills because we want to make sure that we do as much harm reduction as possible, even if we are unable to get bills voted down. Next slide. So these are the criminal legal system bills that we are supporting. So one of the best things, at least about this legislature, is that we often see really bipartisan bills when it comes to any type of criminal legal reform. So a lot of the bills have to do if I can see that slide, we can see the age of adjudication bill. This is one of the bills I am most personally excited about. If you do not know that children as young as 7 years old can be arrested and charged in Oklahoma because we are one of the few states that do not have an age of adjudication. What this bill would do is raise it all the way to the age of 12. I think it is incredibly sad that we have to even think about these type of bills, but they are very much needed, and we're really proud of having partner organizations working on that type of bill. We are also working on bills trying to introduce more accountability into the death penalty process. So two of those current bills is HB 3633. It would add 2 additional members to the Pardon and Parole Board if any members are vacant, or if any members are if there is currently a tie. So those 2 pardon and parole board members would be added by Senate and House leadership. We are also introducing House Bill 3635. This will be a moratorium on the death penalty. And there will be a moratorium on the death penalty placed until all of the recommendations from the Death Penalty Review Commission is enacted. So like Tamaya said, every single year we are going to push for abolishing and a moratorium on the death penalty within our state. The next one will be a bill on reverse search warrants by Senator Young, or SB 1726. If you do not know what a reverse search warrant is, including location and keyword search warrants, it means that law enforcement can get big tech companies such as Google and Facebook to be able to release identifying information on any individual that search a keyword, or any individual that happens to drive by a crime scene at the wrong place at the wrong time. So that is what a reverse search location and keyword warrant is. SB 1726 would prohibit the use of this. So we know that bill could impact things such as reproductive freedom, or if you are simply on your way to work and you simply are driving past a crime scene in the wrong place in the wrong time. So even though we are seeing increasing surveillance and privacy issues, we are doing everything that we can to introduce bills that would curtail that as well. We're also seeing great bills when it comes to pretrial. HB 3728 would require phone calls to be allowed in jails within 48 hours. And then lastly, one of my favorite bills that we have been working with Oklahoma Appleseed on is the Survivors Justice Bill. This is one of our proudest bills, SB 1470 by Senator Greg Treat. This would allow reduced sentencing for survivors of domestic violence who fought back against their abusers. Oftentimes, we see the criminal legal system punishing survivors for fighting back whenever they are in a domestic violence relationship and ending up in prison because of that. This would allow judges to take into consideration, as well as reduce time, as well as reduce sentencing for survivors currently incarcerated for fighting back. Next slide. And of course, we have religious freedom bills. It would not be Oklahoma without a few bills restricting religious freedom. So SB 1858, here we go again, another bill about 10 commandments at the state capitol. You know, ACLU, of course, is going to fight it along with our legal partners. We are also seeing another bill that would force the 10 commandments in every single classroom in public schools. Again, we will be fighting both of those bills. We are also seeing more religion mixed into public schools. So SB 1871 would force creationism to be taught along with evolution. And both HB 3122 and HB 3542, they are identical bills that would create the Oklahoma Freedom of Religious Expression Act. I think everybody here on this call likely knows that it likely does the opposite of it. It would also not only allow chaplains in public schools, but it would explicitly talk about, quote, Judeo-Christian standards, practices, and expressions in public schools. So I added those last two bills. So we've already talked about it in the 2S LGBTQ plus slide. However, we know that attacks on public schools and the separation of church and state come in many forms. However, most of the bills attacking religious freedom are also attacking our public schools as well. Next slide. So lastly, talking about voting and elections, we are opposed to all of the bills right here. Every single year, we see attacks on the initiative petition process. So those two first bills would require signatures in every single county. And the next bill, HJR, or the next joint resolution, HJR 1056, would require signatures in every single congressional district. Initiative petitions are often one of the only ways that our voices can be heard in Oklahoma whenever it comes to anything slightly progressive for our state, whether that is Medicaid expansion, criminal legal reform, as well as many other things that many Oklahomans have said yes to. So we are continuing to see attacks over the ballot initiative process. We are also seeing many more bills that are trying to ban any form of ranked choice voting if it ever comes to our state. And then we are also seeing attacks on registration. SB 1569 made the news recently. It would require every single voter to re-register by 2025. And then SB 1440 would require voter ID cards with photos on them. And then lastly, we have attacks on the absentee ballot. Some of these bills would include requiring a watermark on an absentee ballot. Another bill would require a physician's note. If you were to say that you had a disability and you said that so you could vote for absentee, it would require a doctor's note before you can re-register for an absentee ballot. So again, we are seeing all kinds of attacks on voting rights, elections, the initiative petition process, every single year and every single session that we are seeing. Next slide. But lastly, bills we are very excited to support. So I didn't want to end all the bills with all the doom and gloom. So we wanted to talk about some of the bills that we are very excited to support this session. So we are seeing bills to increase the minimum wage. You may have also heard of the state ballot trying to do that as well. Bills that would protect access to housing, anti-retaliation protections for tenants, as well as SB 1633 by Senator Bourne that would prohibit a landlord from denying or refusing to renew or terminating a lease based on a lack of rental history. And then lastly, we are seeing House Bill 3826 that would increase language access. So we're excited to see all of these bills and really support them in any way that we can, especially in a state like Oklahoma that makes it increasingly difficult to survive. Next slide. So I do see some questions on the chat. Cassie or Tamaya, if you wanted to go over some of the questions, our team is happy to answer them.
Sure. Thank you, Cindy, for that great, thorough explanation, but I think just, a notice that these are not all the bills, right? And these what we see now may not be the final form. So continuing to follow the ACLU of Oklahoma will be an important part of, I think, staying vigilant and monitoring. So with some questions we have, and I'll kind of take them by grouping. This first question is really about like weaponizing the emergency clause. So if the bills that you've named, and maybe not necessarily name them specifically, talk to us about how many have an emergency clause and how we're seeing that kind of play out in previous sessions, the emergency clause.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So emergency clauses essentially means that once the governor signs it, it has become law. A lot of these bills that we are seeing that have emergency clauses mainly have to do a lot with reproductive freedom as well as attacks against our 2S LGBTQ plus communities. So we knew that back in 2022, there were providers literally waiting by the phone, waiting until the governor signed it, because that means as soon as he signed it, that they were no longer able to see patients. Usually laws are enacted, I believe it's 90 days after legislative session ends. Is that correct, Maya? 90 days after legislative session ends, to give people a little bit more time to know that the bill isn't even enacted. But emergency clauses can really be used to be weaponized against many communities, especially when it comes to healthcare access.
Thanks, Cindy. One question is really maybe about process. You know, we had some great state questions that have moved the needle forward, we believe, regarding policy in Oklahoma, but we see kind of a clawback from the legislature. Can the legislature, even when we have state questions that are overwhelmingly passed by the people, can the legislature change it without a vote of the people?
Yes, yes, and yes. It's probably the easiest answer. It wouldn't be the legislative session without continued attacks on State Question 780 and 781. Those are significant criminal legal reforms that released many people from prisons and decarcerated many people and led many people into getting the healthcare, the mental health care that they need besides ending up in prison. So we are seeing significant attacks on that. We are seeing it in Kansas, even though they overwhelmingly supported abortion rights. We are seeing their legislature continue to attack abortion rights, even when Kansas overwhelmingly said that they supported access to reproductive freedom. So even though these state questions can be passed overwhelmingly, there are many politicians that are not happy about that and will introduce bills that either reverse that or make the initiative petition process even harder.
This is a really great question, and then I'll take the other two questions together. But Cindy, is there a likelihood that with these license plate readers or some of these surveillance bills, that they could be in place just to enforce people seeking out-of-state medical care?
Another great question that I am sad that I have to answer. Absolutely. These license plate readers go into a centralized database and we have no idea what they are using them for. So they often say that it is used for missing persons cases in case there's a crime or anything, but they are running them against a database that is not only outdated, but is exempted from the 1974 the Federal Privacy Act. Which means that anybody could get access to these, including big federal agencies, large police departments, and depending on what state you're in, it could also impact if you are traveling out of state to get reproductive care or gender affirming care. So it could impact so many community members, and we are really trying to fight that increasing surveillance every step of the way.
Thanks, Cindy. And if you don't mind, I'll take these next two questions. One question was around the personhood bill, specifically, could it outlaw emergency contraception and IVF? And I say this wholeheartedly that yes, that is the problem with many of these personhood amendments is the unintended consequences. And when we see, again, Oklahoma is no stranger to personhood bills opportunities. And what we know is that these bills would greatly restrict contraception and IVF care and fertility treatment. For a whole host of reasons, we will continue to oppose any type of personhood measure as well. And then the question regarding our bold priority campaign around restoring abortion access. We still believe we still have a few paths to restoring abortion access. One, there are currently still a handful of cases within the Oklahoma state court system around abortion access. So it's still very possible that the Oklahoma State Supreme Court could find that there's a right to an abortion. Many of you may remember that last year, the Oklahoma State Supreme Court found that there was a limited right to an abortion when the health of the mother, when the health of the pregnant person is at stake at any point during the pregnancy, but they were silent to if there was a right to an elective abortion in our Oklahoma state constitution. While we argue that there still is a right to an abortion, including elective abortions, we still have cases that are making their way back up to the state Supreme Court that could fund that right. And then many people are very much aware of the success across the country around reproductive freedom ballot initiatives. And what I can say regarding Oklahoma is that many organizations are still in constant communication about if and when we are in a position to launch a ballot initiative. What we know is that we want to be strategic around when we do that, because we will have one shot at it, essentially. We also know that these are very expensive, that we would need a budget for at least $15 to $20 million. So yes, we still believe there are two paths to restoring abortion access, and we're grateful that we are at those tables in both of these paths to make sure that we get access back to Oklahomans. Let me see what else. There were, for folks to know that in regards to ranked choice, there was another bill, Senate Bill 1991. Yes, 1991, that did not make it on our list, around ranked choice voting, and that contains an emergency clause. So please know that our list, we continue to add to our list. And then some people have the question around, Cindy, are there any bills that you're concerned that are shell bills that could have negative impacts on Oklahomans?
Yes, all of them is probably the easiest question. I didn't include many of the shell bills in our own tracker or this because, again, it would take 10 hours at the least. But yes, the ways that shell bill works is that they are empty bills until lawmakers decide that they have the language to put into the bill. Many people use shell bills as a way to try to present the opposition from being able to read the bills before they introduce them. But yes, on our own personal tracker, we are keeping track of many, many shell bills, many of them including criminal legal reform and reproductive rights.
Sounds great. We did have, I'm just trying to, please bear with me. I want to make sure that I captured most of them. We did have some legal questions, and while we do have our legal team on today, we really wanted to focus this webinar regarding the on our legislation. And then, yes, Debbie Oliver wanted to clarify that, yes, some state questions, the question is, please clarify your answer around state question 780. Some state questions amend the state constitution, and therefore any changes would have to go to a vote of the people. But some state questions are only statutory in nature, and therefore a legislature can make changes. And that's kind of what we've seen with with some of our state questions that we are seeing clawbacks, is that they were not they were not they were not constitutional amendments. They were creating policy and statutory implications. So I think that's just really important to know, is that people decide how they want to maneuver with a state question and an initiative petition process, and that path can be simply statutory or it could be state constitution. And there are different regulations and there are different requirements for those that are introducing an initiative petition, depending on if it's a state question that's amending the Constitution, or if it's a state question amending statutory law. So with that, thank you so much, Cindy, for all of your great work regarding the state legislature. One of the things I just want to name is that session ends in May, so it is a very long time. So what we know is happening and that was introduced may look completely different at the end of session. So it is important for us to monitor and be vigilant, but more importantly, we can't catch everything. So this is really where we believe this is a collective effort So if there are bills making its way through the process, don't hesitate to reach out to Cindy or myself just as a heads up, just to let you know this bill is going through. Don't ever assume that we've got it all together, because I will say, monitoring as many bills as we do, we can miss stuff. The link that you received through our legislative tracker, that's also on our website, and that is updated regularly. So that will be a good tool for you to use throughout session to really monitor the bills that you care about, that we're also following. So with that, I am going to pass along to Jasmine Brown-Jutras, who is our organizing manager. And she's going to talk a little bit about ways to get involved during this legislative session. So Jasmine, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Tamaya. Hey, everyone. As she said, my name is Jasmine Brown-Jutras, and my pronouns are she, her. Today, I am so excited to have the opportunity to share with you all the opportunities that you can take what you've learned today. I know it was a lot, and now you know that we have quite a bit of work to do. And so I'm going to share with you some opportunities on how you can get involved and be engaged overall with the ACLU and how to track what's going on and how to keep up, but also some specific events that we have coming up in the future. And of course, I'll be talking about our Advocacy Day. So I will start off with our rapid response team. So our rapid response team, this is for ACLU supporters who want to do more than just watch on the side or maybe like show up when you can. This is for somebody who wants to receive a call to action. We send out regular text messages about about legislative updates. If there are some bills that are going to be heading to the floor where there's an opportunity for engagement, when you need to call your legislator to oppose or to support a bill, or even to invite you to our Pride Parade festivities or to help us tabling an event. If you are one of those people who wants to know when the ACLU needs your help, that is for you. So please sign up for our rapid response team if you haven't already. And then I also wanted to share this week on February 1st, we will be launching our first meeting for our Not in My Name coalition. So the Not in My Name coalition is an opportunity for folks who are aware of the death penalty and have an opinion about wanting to fix the system and want to know about what is happening. This is for all folks who maybe you don't know a lot about the death penalty. This is also great for you. You want to know more. This is a great opportunity for you as well. So you can join us on February 1st. Jill Owens, our organizer, will be hosting that meeting again on February 1st at 6 o'clock. And you can sign up to join that meeting and learn more about how that coalition will not only be meeting, what kind of work we'll be doing, and also how you can possibly follow along and help us to lobby for a moratorium on the execution. So that will be in the chat for you to sign up for. And then lastly, our Advocacy Day is coming up on February 26th. We're so excited to be able to have this at such an early part of the session. It's going to give us an opportunity to allow our participants to see the committee process, which is where we know that we have a lot of power as citizens to participate in that process. And so we're going to be having this day dedicated to lobbying for yourself, because we know that over the last few years, it's not just been tough for, liberty seekers like ourselves. It's been policy after policies that attack our mental health, our physical health, our children, our livelihoods, and our quality of life. And so we don't want you to come to this Advocacy Day to fight for what the ACLU wants to fight for. We want you to think about what is it that's been happening in Oklahoma and through this legislature, what has been passed that is really impacting me individually. And I want you to sign up for our Advocacy Day and come to our Advocacy Day with that in mind. And we're going to help you through discussions on panels and through group discussions to think about what that is, craft your personal story, and understand what it is that's impacting you, and figure out how to use that as your power to impact the legislative process on these policies. And so we really want to have you. We want to have you for breakfast, have you for lunch. Come get your T-shirt. Advocacy Day is the day that we bring out our best swag. So please make sure you register for all of those events. And if you have any questions, I will leave my contact in the chat box. And I, again, thank you so much, Tamaya and Cindy and Cassidy, for putting this together.
Thank you, Jasmine. For more information regarding all the great advocacy work and how to get involved, as you said, Jasmine's going to put her information in the chat box, but please reach out to her and our organizer, Jill, for more information. And lastly, I would like to send it over to Lisa Pizzeri, our development director, to really talk about ways that you can continue to support our amazing organization.
Thank you so much, Tamaya. For 60 years, this affiliate has been doing this incredible work in our state. And you've heard from Tamaya, from Jasmine, from Cindy, the many, many ways that you can be involved in this work. And I'm going to talk about 2 ways. And both of those involve donating. So if you're not already a card-carrying member of the ACLU of Oklahoma, please, please become one today. I put a link in the chat. That's our donate button on our website. You can click the link and very easily become a member, and you'll be supporting this critical work that Cindy is conducting, not just during the legislative session, but throughout the entire year. And then you can donate to our foundation. The foundation contributions are tax-deductible donations that support our operations and our legal work. So the work that Megan and her team are doing with 1775 and so many other issues, if you make that contribution to our foundation, those dollars stay here in the state of Oklahoma and directly impact the work of this amazing team. So if you ever have any questions, my contact information is in the link that I just put there. Happy to answer any questions about membership, about contributions, and we really thank you for your support and for being here today.
Thank you, Lisa. Once again, we are excited to celebrate our 60th anniversary, and we're excited to share that and celebrate that with you. We know that we are in community with you all and that we get to liberation collectively together. So we truly hope that you will continue to follow the work of the ACLU, get involved in any way you can and you feel comfortable with, but most importantly, making sure that we're looking out for one another as we travel this legislative session this year. So with that, thank you all so much for attending. Wait, let me back up because what I tend to do. Team, is there anything else I forgot? I think I'm getting thumbs up. We're good. Okay. So with that, thank you all so much for your time this afternoon. And hopefully we will see you under the dome. You all take care. Thank you.